everybody. Welcome to the Monday episode of the Dodman Bandits. I'm Orrin Phillips, and we have a wonderful, wonderful episode today. Fresh off the press is The Lucky Devils by Image Comics. And to celebrate that, we have the creators of this book. Charles Soule and Ryan Browne are joining us to talk about A, the book, and B, their relationship, because they've worked on a number of projects together. They are really a phenomenal, dynamic duo, as we would say in comics. And to hear about their process, to hear about how they come up with characters, and especially how they came up with this book is really fascinating. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. And make sure you go out and get the comics too. It's at your LCS, came out last Wednesday, so it should still be there. So go check it out. Here we are with Ryan and Charles. Charles Soule, Ryan Browne, the men behind the Lucky Devils. Gentlemen, congratulations on release day today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Feels pretty good, I got to say, to have this thing out in the world.
Now,
Yeah,
what's the
I actually,
genesis of it? Oh,
Charles, I thought we could
Oh, you cracked a
celebrate.
Genie's beer.
I just went and got one. I'm gonna open it and to celebrate our release. We have an 8 billion genies. The other another book we did.
yes.
Local brewery made a 8 billion genies beer, so
How cool is
I
that?
am officially off the clock.
It's
Uh,
5 o'clock
release
somewhere.
day. That's right.
That beer is 88% alcohol though, I think. And so Ryan's gonna be boom, gonna be destroyed. 3 sips in and he's gonna be
Yeah, what
stacking
are
down.
you saying?
Yeah.
I'm melting.
Hmm.
So, where did the idea for this book begin? Because you guys have had a number of collaborations. How long has this been an idea that's been kind of kicked around?
Well, the story of this one, they all have their own story. We did curse words first, we did 8 billion
Mhm.
genies next. And there's always different ideas that are percolating in the background beneath those active projects, things we might do one day, things that make us laugh, things we talk about. And when we came off of Genies, we took a break because we were exhausted. But then we started thinking about, what is the next book going to be? And we kicked around the idea of doing more Genies. And then ultimately decided that it would be good to do a new original thing to cement our, like, creative brand, I guess, which sounds so cynical, but like, to like set us up as people who do cool things, so that you hear our names on something, it's like, hey, this is probably cool because everything else they've done is cool.
I mean,
Um,
a nicer way to say it is we said, let's see if we can do it again.
yes,
There you
that,
go.
I guess that's true. So we kicked around a ton of ideas, like a lot of ideas. We had like a little mini summit where we got together and we just, like, had a couple beers and talked things through. And I had always had this idea of, like, the way that devils might influence, or like the source of evil or badness or jerks in a given setting, in a way that wasn't like the devil, but was more like smaller, minor, um, local evil, essentially. Like, like the things that are described in the first issue, like the person in the HOA, the homeowners association, who's just a total asshole for no reason, like just has a tiny bit of power and uses it to make other people's lives miserable, or like a bully, or just, the person in your office who just, for whatever reason, makes everybody's life miserable. Like, where do that kind of evil, where does that come from? And so that led me to the idea of like a really little devil that would be like not tasked with making people, like, start a nuclear war or something terrible, but just like being a jerk. And I thought I had this image in my head of a devil like that, like crawling around on a person like an insect. And I asked Ryan to draw that, like sketch that. What would that look like? Because Ryan is such an incredible cartoonist. He can draw anything. And he's really good at like fiddly little weird dudes and ladies. That's his favorite thing he's really good at. Fiddly little weird dudes and ladies. So I'm like, draw a little devil like crawling or perched on a person. And he did this little stick figure drawing in one of my notebooks that I used to plan projects. And it was like, boom, that is this book. That's the look of this book and the way it's gonna feel. And then it's just down to me to figure out what the story is of these low level devils who don't have the biggest jobs in the world. They're kind of like the gig workers of hell. What would their lives be like? What would they want? What would they be trying to achieve? And so that's really where it came from. Sometimes they come from Ryan, sometimes they came from me, but in the end, they come from both of us, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, it was strongly collaborative in terms of what the final product was.
Mhm.
Um, but for me, like I make comics because I like crafting visuals and coming up with world building and ideas, and so anything that Charles and I are going to do together is not going to be, a couple of people in suits sitting in a room having a conversation for, 10 issues. Um, so it's always within that framework that we come up with what we're going to work on, that we have to make sure that it like visually has some fun and play, and we can explore and world build and go off. So, um, trying to figure out exactly how to do a devil and make it feel fresh, or if not fresh, then not A meets B or something, like
Mhm.
and so there was a lot it was a lot of searching to figure out what these little creatures looked like, what they felt like, what their posture was like,
Mhm.
um, so that it could be something that could be uniquely ours instead of which is what we kind of did with 8 Billion Genies, and that was the most intimidating thing, was starting over again and world building again and being like, how can we come up with a take that we haven't seen before
Mhm.
on, you know, from Gremlins all the way to Hellboy, right? Like, and you've got like a spectrum of little creepy dudes, and um, so that was a big part of like getting this knocked in and figuring out what this book was after Charles had the original concepts, it was figuring out what it felt like and what it looked like, which is why the first issue of a book takes so long to do. I started drawing this over like almost exactly a year ago, um, and but now we're cooking, man. We got it all
Yeah.
figured out.
Yeah. I think we closed issue two, just what, as Ryan
Mhm.
yeah, Ryan mentioned it.
He is
We're
a
we're
mensch.
I
both
did. I
very,
mentioned
we're a
it.
little
Yeah.
Yeah.
blurred out. Ryan did mention that. Um, that's just how we talk, comic
Yeah.
book lingo.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Cool guy
mentioned
talk.
that issue two has been in progress for a long time, and it was, you, from a certain perspective, you could say it was done a while ago, but when it comes time to send it to press, and it's like, okay, this is the version that's actually gonna live on the stand. We typically go in and, like, there's a lot of like last minute fiddling that goes on, which creates a situation where Ryan needs to have an 8 billion genies beer at the end of the day. It can be very stressful and intense,
Right.
but I think it's kind of what separates our work from, there's lots of other great work out there, but like that commitment to like doing what we have to do to make it great till the very last second is
Mhm.
something that's characterized our work for a really long time.
Mhm. I'd say it sounds like with the two of you, it's a true collaborative process. You bounce ideas back and forth off each other, which is refreshing because, we often hear sometimes, well, the writer does something, sends it to the artist, and that's that. There's no communication between them. What process do you guys like? I mean, I can see your process works well, but is that the process you ideally like to have when you're working on a project?
Why don't you speak to this, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of times where it is an easier job if someone just figures it all out for me
Mhm.
and I just follow a script and do exactly what is laid out. It's a less fun time and it's a less like rewarding. So, I feel like Charles and I have this really good working relationship where the core concepts and the structure is all him, and like and the heart and the characters, and then I build on it, and I none of the characters really had like a set design from Charles. I had to figure out, it was
Mm-hmm.
like a white guy and a black lady, and
Mhm.
and then two little devils, and so then I start doing illustrations of them and figuring out the look, and then I send them back to Charles, and then that inspires Charles when he's writing on, like I try to give as much acting and visual cues into the posture and the clothing and the styling of the people so that they feel unique. And and so then it goes back to Charles, and then he starts writing scripts, and he writes full scripts, and then they come to me. I add a lot of little things, little details around the edges, or you know, uh, every once in a while, maybe I have to add a panel or something because I have a little idea about a little moment or something. But for the most part, like Charles's scripts are done, they get them to me, and then when he sees the art, he revises on top of that.
Mhm.
And then when we then I color them and we get send them to the letterer, and then when they come back, Charles has a huge edit
Mhm.
on the letters based on how it reads visually when you see it all together. So it's never a process of Charles did his job, he's done, and he walks away. Like it's a I've finished this round. I
Mhm.
passed the ball to you. You pass it back to me. I pass the ball to you. It's that back and forth a lot. Um, and it's great because we've been doing this for long enough that we really um, can trust each other to come up with good
Mhm.
solutions and good ideas. And you know, I'm now at a point where I will invent things in there, and I'll just try and be smart about it and have a reason for it.
Mhm.
Um, because Charles is the writer. Like he's all the words are his, and the plot is his. But like I'm as a comic book creator, I'm not just an illustrator, I'm a storyteller. So I do all the acting, I do all the scenery and the art design of like a movie and stuff. Um so I think it could only be good if you went back and forth on it and played off of the decisions the other person made. And that we have a really good working relationship with that. And this the bulk of jobs in comics are you get work that's finished
Mhm.
and you add on to it, and then the next person adds on to it, and then it's done. The bulk of comics aren't passing back and forth and editing and revising,
Mhm.
um, which is why it takes so long.
Yeah, the bucket.
I Ryan had that answer is perfect. I agree with everything he said, although I would maybe have said it a little bit more succinctly. And it's actually quoting something that he said in another one of these conversations, whatever the hell ago it was. He said, I talk to Charles more than I talk to my wife. And I think basically that's why the books work, is
Right.
that we are constantly in communication, whether it's text, email, phone calls, Zooms, seeing each other in person. Like we are, when we are in active production, it's like there it's constant. It's literally all day long. And there was a time after Genies wrapped where we kind of weren't for what, because we sort of, it was like we'll catch up, we'll talk, but it wasn't like we were talking 17 million times a day, which is what we normally do. And it was definitely like it was a change.
Mhm.
And then when it all kind of started to start up again, as we got really into active work on this book,
Right.
it felt like, oh right, here we are again. This is the lines are open. It's the which I love. I mean, we had I'm not going to call it a problem. We had a creative question that we needed to solve in issue two that we neither one of us really recognized ahead of time. And it was only when the book was lettered that we were so very far into production, we realized, oh wait, there's a comprehension issue here with the way that the characters interact, because there's like supernatural things going on, and like we need to find a way to make this clear to the reader immediately.
Mhm.
And so in the end, Ryan and I both did things to make that work. Like it was Ryan did found a great solution in colors. And then it was about giving some direct into the letterer about the way that the lettering would be approached. So ultimately, really the letterer and Ryan figured out the solution, but it was the three of us seeing it and saying, how do we get where we need to go? And
Mhm.
that doesn't happen unless all of those lines of communication are instantly open. Like which is great. It's the way to make art, I think.
With this project, Charles, did you have a beginning and an end point concrete, or was it open? Here's the beginning. Let's see where this goes, and then the conclusion will just kind of come naturally.
No, well, this book is a 9-issue series, which
Right.
is like 8 billion Genies, which was an 8-issue series.
Right.
And we we had all of 8 billion Genies. There was some, the ending ended up being tweaked and things like that. But we had all of Genies planned, like pretty very thoroughly planned
Mhm.
from the beginning. And I thought it made so much sense to do that because it gives you a roadmap that the readers can feel from issue one. Like they feel like they are in good hands, and beats you lay down in one get picked up in six or things like that. And there's a lot of room for us to invent things and figure out twists and turns in the story and do different things. But I also think it can be really dangerous to go into a story like this when you know it's finite and
Mhm.
you tell people it's finite and not have that roadmap pretty well, at least, sketched in. because I don't know, like it's almost like a contract you're entering into with the readership. Like, we are taking you on a journey. The journey lasts nine months, whatever, 9 issues. And when you are done, you're going to feel like it was worth it. And I don't think you can really do that on a completely improvisational level.
Mhm.
Ryan and I would say, I don't know, Ryan, would you say it's 80-20 or 70? Probably more like, actually, maybe I don't want to say what I actually think the breakdown is in terms of how we do these books, but it's a lot of it is planned, but there's a lot of room for that like magic that happens between the two of us too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of setting things up that we don't know exactly what they mean yet, but we'll figure out a way to resolve them. I put little details in, like little ideas I had, um, just when I'm drawing it, and like maybe we will explain that later, or maybe we won't. Maybe it's not important. There was a big thing in curse words where in issue 2, Wizard loses his beard, like right at the very beginning, he loses his power. And so I got to draw him out of the beard, and the first time I drew him out of the beard was on that page, and I was like, maybe he has a scar across his throat. So I drew this big scar across his throat,
Yeah.
and I was just like, maybe because we'd never seen his throat before because he had a beard, and I was like, maybe we will do something with that. Maybe not. I don't know what it means. And then eventually, like many issues later, there was a flashback that explained it. Um, but it made sense and it worked. Like you always want to avoid being, lost, the
Mhm.
show Lost, where you come up with such amazing questions that there are no satisfying answers to. And it's just like, wow, what could that mean? I don't know. There's no way for that to pay off. But we're both pretty good improv thinkers in terms of figuring
Mhm.
out connections and how things can land and throwing out lots of ideas that have a little bit of an open-endedness to them so that we can tie them in together later if we want to. And some of that is just little detail work, and some of that is um, characters that appear in on one panel and one page, and then later Charles puts them in there again, and they have some sort of a deeper significance or something like that. But the overarching structure has been fully laid out by Charles. Like he knows where it's going, but still every script I get is, I don't know, at least 60-70% a surprise. Like in terms of what the actual events are. Like I know where it's all going, but so it's very fun for me to get that script and read it and be like, wow, that's cool. Like I didn't know that was gonna happen. Like that because normally the book is spoiled because I make it, with Charles, so I don't get to enjoy it. But the time where I get the fun surprises and get to see where it's going is when I first read that first script.
This is a question for both of you guys. And I'll start with you, Charles, because you mentioned before with this book, some of the characters are sort of taken from real life, things you've experienced, or, it's something that we can all sort of relate to. When creating a character in general, where do you start the blueprint? Is it with a personality trait? Is it with, a physical appearance, a name, an ability? Where do you usually start and build from?
This is actually part of the process that's a little bit mysterious to me. I think the characters in the early stages of books, it's not this way now. But if you look at them in like the first issues, you don't really learn that much about them. You kind of do, but it's a little sketchy. It's a little loose.
Mhm.
You there's a lot of room for details to be filled in, because the characters kind of introduce themselves to me as I'm going, and that's not something that I do like in novels or things like that. But in comics, because they're being written kind of as they go. Like I guess Ryan says a lot that I'm a structure guy, and I think that's true. Like so what I have for this book is all of like the structure. Like I know the things that happen. I know the rules of hell. I know the rules of earth. I know the things that are trying to be achieved. I know everybody's goals. I know like kind of how it goes. But in terms of the individuals that are experiencing them, like I know quite a bit about Collar and Rick. I know about the Devils a lot, but the two humans, I kind of want like I want the reader to feel like they are experiencing these events along with them. And so if you create people who are too stamped almost like out of a mold that is incredibly specific, then it's difficult for readers to imprint themselves on them and feel like they're going through the journey at the same time. And so as the book goes on, we learn more and more and more. Like we are learning more about, you'll learn more about Cam and Star in issue 2, and then in 3 and 4, and like it builds, and you'll learn more about their past. But it by that time you will hopefully really really like them and be invested in their struggle and their story. And so any details that maybe aren't connectable to your life won't be off-putting in the way that they maybe would have been in issue 1.
And for you, Ryan, when you're creating these things and drawing them, usually how many takes does it for you, or how many sketches do you have to do before you really feel like your art is connecting with what you think this character should be?
Um, like by issue 3,
Mhm.
maybe, which
Yeah.
which is why, I love doing monthly books. I think it's really, really fun. But the early issues of Curse Words and 8 Billion Genies, and probably this as well, like when you're learning to draw a character, it takes a lot of reps to get it right and to figure out exactly what it is. You'll see artists talk about this a lot. Like, you know, doing a run on a series, it might take you, until the third issue, fourth issue before you feel like you really understand how to draw them. And then you look at your early drawings and you're like, they were stiff, or, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't, their physicality wouldn't be like that. So for us, since we are entirely in control of this book, like I make a decent amount of revisions before it goes to the collected edition. And I will probably do it again because by the time, like, I think that I've got color and rake pretty well figured out.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done as much with Cam and Star, but they're both based off of people I know. And so I can visualize how they would feel and move, um, and act and respond. And the guy that's Cam is one of my oldest friends who is a teacher, and he's just kind of a very good-hearted, goofy dude. Um, and I'm just drawing him like he just is Cam, and Charles doesn't know him, so it's not like he's feeding off of it. But like I'm just like when he pitched that character, I was like, I know this guy. I've known this guy my whole life. So that's pretty easy. But yeah, I'll go back when we do the collection, and I will correct drawings. 8 Billion Genies. If you look at 8 Billion Genies one, the single issue versus what's in the collection, there are massive differences. No one has ever said anything to me about it, which is fine. Like I think that they all work. It's just a question of living in that world. You really figure out exactly how everything should feel in a way that if you were just like, all right, finished product right here, just go. And I'm like, well, I can't think that deeply into and all the reps that I would get with drawing that world and those characters.
You know who you sound like right now, Ryan, with this philosophy of yours that you're espousing? George Lucas.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I George Lucas my stuff all the time.
Yeah.
All the
You
time.
George Lucas yourself. Conley, everything's a special edition with you.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
I just sent the fourth printing of the first God Hates Astronauts trade, and I
And you
pretty much
messed with it, right?
I pretty much redid the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. You had Boba Fett stepping on Jabba's tail
Yeah, I
awkwardly.
did. No, Boba Fett doesn't step on Java's tail.
Oh,
Come on.
Han does it, right? Han
Han
does it,
does
but
it.
Boba Fett
Han
like
does.
goes into screen, right?
Han just
Han does
goes
it.
up and then down.
Yeah. That's true, man. What a cinematic moment.
I'm wondering for where you guys are right now. Can you look back at some sort of evolutionary points, projects you've worked on, even small things, big things, that kind of something clicked and you said, "Yes, this is where this works. I'm going to build it onto this to where you are right now."
I mean, 8 billion genies was massive
Mhm.
in terms of learning and figuring it out. Curse words is interesting to look at because curse words ended up being such a product of the difficulty of doing a monthly comic for that long. Just like my art did not get better over the course of that book,
Mhm.
which it took place over 4 years. But my art got much better over the course of 8 Billion Genies and is getting better over the course of Lucky Devils. But Curse Words was such a you just have to get it done, and like it's such incredible difficulty with that for as long as it was. And then like with 8 Billion Genies, half the issues were late because we were like, let's make it exactly like the evergreen statement we want this to be. And so, which, is also what we're doing with the Lucky Devils. Like, it's
Mhm.
just, I'm not dropping backgrounds. I'm not using, thicker writing or inking tools. And I'm not dropping out the hatching or the details and stuff. Um, so, I mean, I it just makes a better end product, which I think I've learned to be more okay with
Mhm.
being not the fastest artist in the world, I guess.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, and you're still incredibly fast, Ryan. Like we're still doing just fine. It's like I think you are, I don't know, you hold yourself to an incredibly high standard when you do this stuff, and it I don't know, it's good. It's great for the book. Um, to answer that same question, like for me, I had the journey of a writer to go up is different than the journey of an artist in some ways. We have to make like a million short stories that we pray that an artist will draw.
Mhm.
Um, and then we gather enough of those to start getting enough heat to maybe get a pitch accepted to do a graphic novel. Like it's a long process that takes forever. Not that becoming a comics artist doesn't. It's the same. It's just really, really hard. But for me, there was the moment when I had my first super super indie book published called Strongman. It came out in 2009 from SLG. They did, I think the print run was 500 copies. It was tiny, and like Ryan and I do bigger print runs on like you know issues we do just for fun now. It's which is wild. Um, and but getting it out there, and then there was a day that it came out, and I was waiting for reviews, and there was a comic book website, or not a comic book, like an entertainment website back then called Ain't It Cool News,
Mhm.
and they ran comic reviews every Wednesday, and they reviewed it, and I was like terrified to read it because I just didn't know. I had no idea if it was good. I didn't know if it would how the wider world would receive it. And I was working as an attorney then, and if people don't know my backstory, I was a lawyer for a long, long time, and really, really, really wanted to not be a lawyer for a really long time. And writing, I was trying to write my way out of it. And this was really the first, after 9 years of trying, this was the first thing I'd gotten seriously published, if you want to call a 500 copy print run serious. But it
Yeah.
felt serious to me.
Right.
Yeah.
And if that review had been bad, I don't know that any of this would be happening right now. Like I was so like focused on, oh my God, what will people think of this thing?
Mhm.
And ultimately it was received really, really well. And people found it, and I worked really hard to get it to people. Like I had copies of my own that I sent to people. And like I just worked to try to get whatever traction I could out of it. And that led to another book at Archaea called Strands of Tractors. And then that led to a book at Image called at Shadowline, which is Jim Valentino's imprint
Mhm.
back then, called 27. And the day that happened, I was at C2E2 in Chicago. You're where Ryan is sitting right now. Not literally, I wasn't literally where Ryan is sitting right now. I was at the convention center, McCormick Place. But I was there with Nick Spencer, who was another creator that came up at the same time as me, and he had been working with Jim Valentino for a little while, and so he knew him and he knew me and was able to basically make an introduction. And he took the pitch for 27, and he he walked it over to Jim and put it in his hands and said, "You should look at this." And so Jim looked at it and was like, "Yeah, we'll do this. Great." And so and then I'm forgetting the exact details of the memory, but I think Nick came back to me and said, "Yeah, Jim said cool." And I was like, "Wait a minute, I don't like what. There's got to be more of a process than this. Like there has to be like some formalities to this
Right.
beyond just yeah, we'll do it." And it wasn't. It
Comics,
was like
maybe.
yeah, I went over to I met him, I talked to him. He's like, "Yeah, this looks cool." He had a couple thoughts. His only real creative note at that point was, you ever thought about doing it golden age size, which was his like the thing he was doing at the time to make the book stand out on the shelf. So
Mhm.
27 and the other books that he was doing then are a little bigger than
Yep.
standard floppies, which ended up being something that I heard about for years because retailers hated racking them and collectors hated bagging them because none of their stuff fit. Anyway, um, when I remember going home for that convention and saying, "Oh my God, I have an Image Comics comic that's going to come out. That's real. This is I can take this and I can run to the moon with this. Like I can use this to make everything happen." And again, like here if the works had been terrible, that would have been different. But like people seem to like it, and here we are. But those two moments, I think the moment I read that first review of Strongman, and then the moment that Jim Valentino was like, "Yeah, sure," were the 2 points. There were others. There are lots of others you could cite, but those two were like, "Oh my God, I can do this. I can do it." Um, which are both good moments. I'd rather feel that than, "Oh no, I can't do this." That'd be a bad moment.
Well, I definitely agree. So we've taken the first step today with Lucky Devils. What can fans expect going forward?
Ryan, go for it.
I mean, they can expect things to continue to go in a increasingly more out of control direction, I guess. I don't know. That's probably not the best way to say it, but things. I mean, we're dealing with devils, a deal with the devil, right? And two devils with a grand plan to basically create a revolution in hell and overthrow the class system. Meanwhile, they're trying to make these two people um, stay good while becoming very powerfully influential, which is an extremely hard thing to do. Um, so the story starts small, starts, in two different bedrooms, and then it ends up becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and growing, similar to how 8 Billion Genies did, starting in that bar and then, literally changing the world. So we'll see this story get bigger and bigger and grow more and more, and our characters will grow, some of them literally, as it goes on. So it's going to be super fun. Issue two is 26 pages. Issue one was 27, I think.
Yep.
So we're not really skimping on this. We're going all in.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. It just gets bigger, it gets wilder. The central premise of two shoulder devils who decided to reveal themselves to the humans and become friends with them and improve their lives for better or for worse
Mhm.
is the little start. It's like when shoot, what was the dude's name in Gremlins? The main character, what was his name? Not
Uh,
Gizmo, but like the guy.
David,
The dude.
Peter,
David,
Peter,
Peter,
David, something like that.
Peter
Yeah.
David. Peter David, noted Hulk scribe, Peter David, went and
Who
bought
knew?
a Mowgli from that little shop in Chinatown. Um,
It's not a Mowgli. Mowgli's from the Jungle Book. It's a
what are you talking about? What
Mogwai.
is it called then?
It's a Mogwai.
Oh
Mogwai.
yeah, a Mogwai. That's what I meant.
Mowgli's the Jungle Book boy.
You're right. Okay, he goes and buys a Mowgli. Ryan, it's not very
That's a
PC.
very different story.
Talking about. Jeez,
It,
Ryan.
it, it
Oh
is
my God.
Billy
That's the
Peltzer.
Billy.
Billy,
That's right. That's what
Billy.
it is.
Thank you,
Billy
Yahoo.
Belt. Yeah. But I think that was the Genies beer talking there, Ryan. You got to watch yourself with that stuff.
I mean, I actually just watched the movie recently. It's truly the most spectacular use of fake snow. It is. There isn't a single moment of that movie that feels cold. You can't see any.
Yeah.
Everything is fake snow. It's just like soap, shavings or whatever everywhere. It is watching it with adult eyes. I'm just like, man, guys, you really couldn't have filmed this somewhere with actual snow, really?
Well,
You know,
anyway, so the way that movie begins with this tiny little inciting event of Billy going and buying his
mhm.
Mog Y.
Billy
And
doesn't buy it.
then,
His dad buys it.
oh my God.
Come on,
Now
man.
who's drinking?
Do you want me
You
to
know
tell you
what? We
what
didn't
happens
all
in the
just
movie?
skip. Yes, his dad buys it and then gives it to him as a present, right? That's what happens. It's a weird Christmas present.
Yes.
Yeah.
In
He
any
tries to
case,
buy it. He tries to buy it from the old Chinese guy. The
I
guy
know.
won't sell it to him, and then
Yep.
his grandson sneaks it out and sells it to him in the alley because they need money.
Okay. So anyway, thank you for the summary of the project that isn't ours while I try to
Let's
summarize the
talk
project
about
that
Gremlins some more.
is. Anyway, so you know how that movie begins with the small but elaborately described on this phone call instead of inciting incidents,
Hmm.
and then spirals way, way, way into a lot of other wild, crazy things that
Yeah.
you can see them all. They start there, but then they just, it's a lot
And
of
they jump in the
unintended
swimming pool
consequences.
and
That
multiply.
is,
Yep.
like there's a lot of gremlins in a microwave. That's basically the final issue. Lots of gremlins in microwaves. Did that happen in the movie, Ryan?
There was a gremlin in the microwave. Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. I
Yeah.
knew it.
Yeah.
See, I know
But
the
just
movie.
one, not a
I
lot.
know the
So,
movie. Phoebe Cates' dad died in the chimney,
Yeah.
pretending to be Santa Claus. I know the
mhm.
movie, man. I know the movie.
I think that
Baloo sings the song in the you know, like with the creature on his belly, he's like floating on his back in the water, right?
Mhm.
yeah,
That's the movie.
Yeah.
yeah.
The bear on his back, floating, singing the song. You don't remember that part?
Uh-huh. You
And
know what I did? What I did
the
realize
mean
watching it.
tiger, Shere Khan.
Yeah, yeah. No, I remember this. I remember this all. Yeah. Uh-huh. What I did realize watching it this time is that the science teacher that Billy takes uh, the gremlin to, who gets eaten by the gremlin offering him a candy bar, that
Yep.
that actor is the actor who played Mayor Royce in The Wire, and I thought that was
Oh,
kind of interesting. I
I
was
do
like, hey,
too.
it's Mayor Royce.
Yeah.
All
Anyway,
right.
well, I unfortunately have like 2 minutes left on this phone call. We spent almost all of it talking about gremlins, mostly
Yeah.
inaccurately. So, what else can we do for you
I
before
say
that?
to wrap up the Lucky Devils, a lot of gremlins in a microwave. And we are back. I really loved how he came up with one character. Maybe it's something that a lot of us can relate to, but that one person who is kind of the squeaky wheel if you're a part of the homeowners association, and they are a demon in this story, and I like that a lot. Really cool guys. We'd love to have them back to talk, because they've done so many other things with Star Wars and other projects about their career. So, like I said, go get the book. It's really worth checking out. I hope you enjoyed it, Charles and Ryan. Thank you guys so much for taking the time. Continued success on this book. We know it's going to be a hit. And we have a big week for you guys. 3-episode week this week is back. And it's going to be about a certain detective who we all know and love. What's this all about? You'll find out. So we will see you on Wednesday. Thanks so much.